This subject is near and dear to my heart, and I mean it pun intended in a sense, or take it with a grain of salt, because I had the privilege of growing up with some real gangsters, real gang members. If you've heard of some Asian gangs out there, Green Dragons, Goblins, Korean Power, those were the Asian gangs around where I grew up, and I was around other gangsters as well. They're gangs of different ethnicities, things of that nature. So I had the privilege of that, or I was unfortunate enough. So it depends on how you look at it. So in this scene, we delve into the life of Italian gangsters or the mafia in the movie Goodfellas. I think most of you have watched this. Martin Scorsese, a very popular movie, great actors in it. I don't know about you, but I love what Joe Pesci did because it wasn't the prototypical gangster that we see in movies. You know, the scowl, eyebrows in a certain position to look mean, you know. He goes from joking to laughing to cracking up to actually being very, very scary. So this is why I wanted to break down this scene to show you what a real gangster or a real actor acts like as a gangster. Now we can argue ad nauseum and none of us really know, is Joe Pesci a real gangster? From what I understand, I think he's from New York. He might be from Queens. And who knows what his background is. I'm sure he grew up around some real tough guys. You know, that's just my guess. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was a choir boy. But that's just my impression of him. He kind of has that I don't give a F aura about him, which enables him to play a really scary gangster when need be. I think it's important to note we shouldn't portray gangsters by portraying other gangsters. So let me elaborate. We shouldn't base our performances, if we're cast as a gangster, on the previous thousands of performances we've seen of other gangsters. We should base it on real life. If we've ever had the privilege of being around real gangsters, maybe take some of their influence, or maybe take none of their influence. But more importantly, do not portray what you think a gangster should be, and be guarded against dialing it in and playing the typical tough guy. I'm mean, I'm tough, I'm a killer, I'll hurt you, that type of thing. Gangsters sit on the toilet. Gangsters eat cookies. Gangsters eat ice cream. Gangsters hug their daughters. Gangsters joke around, you know, as well as kill people, right? So we should be able to portray the whole spectrum of being a complete human being and not just assume I have to be the meanest MF there is, then the people will love me, then my performance will be applauded, or whatever it is that, you know, misguided actors think. You know, just be a human being. You know, Christopher Waltz is a good example. He plays bad guys, right? Remember Inglourious Bastards? He's laughing 75% of the time, 80% of the time. He's smiling. He looks like your milkman, right? But he's a stone cold killer. That's just one example. I'm not saying that everybody should try to be him or anything like that, but it's just an example that comes to mind. And finally, I want to touch on the performance. Both Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci, from my observation, they did a real good job of no preconceived notions. They stayed in the moment within the scene. So, you know, you have the pitfall of reading the scene, memorizing your lines, you know what your objective is, you know what your obstacles are, you know all of these things. We as the actors who are hired to do the part, we already know how the scene is going to play out. And that is an advantage, but it's also a pitfall because Ray Liotta knows it's a sequence where he's joking around and then he says to Joe Pesci that he's a funny guy, and then Joe Pesci gets really angry, and then by the end of the sequence, he finds out he was just joking around, right? So Ray Liotta already knows that it's a joke. So it's important for him not to play knowing the joke from the beginning. It's important for him to laugh in the beginning and then to really be terrified in the middle when he doesn't know if Joe Pesci's serious or not, or at least be very confused, depending on how he wants to play it. And the greater the terror and or confusion, the scene gets more heightened and the more intimidating Joe Pesci becomes. Thus, the scene becomes that much more powerful. So Ray Liotta has a very important part in this sequence. And conversely, Joe Pesci, the same thing. He knows how the scene's going to end, obviously. He's the actor who was hired for the part. He knows the script. He memorized his lines, right? But it's important for him, again, to crack up in the beginning, get the audience off guard, and then to really turn it on its side or turn it on its head and become really serious and threatening. Like, this guy's a stone cold killer. He's the toughest guy on the block, so to speak, right? And at the end, he has to let go of the tension and let them know that he was joking, you know, and that's also very dynamic in terms of what he has to do. Also, one thing to note, it's really up to him how he wants to play it, what his motivation is, right? Specifically speaking, if I was Joe Pesci, and I'm not, but if I was Joe Pesci in that scene or a similar scene, in my mind, I'm not joking. It was never a joke to begin with. The scene may have played out that way. That may have been the writers and Scorsese's goal, right? But in my mind, I was never joking throughout the entire scene. The whole time, I'm actually serious. You think I'm a funny guy? I don't care if you're my buddy, my acquaintance. I grew up with you. You grew up with me. You were my little homeboy that I brought up through the ranks, and I knew you when you were in high school or whatever the hell it is. There's a screw loose, if not 50 screws loose, in my head. So any little thing can set me off. I'm an alcoholic. I'm probably on drugs. I have a lot of torment. I can't sleep at night from killing people. I see the spirits of the people that I killed every single night where I can't sleep. I have to watch my back every single second. I'm paranoid. You name it, I have it, right? So I was never joking. You think I'm a funny guy? I'll take you in the back right now and I'll shoot you in the back of the head. And I meant that. When I said, what, you think I'm a funny guy? That was real insecurity. That was a real question. It's just that at the end, I just let it go because I needed to continue to earn, make a living, function, and not get another enemy, at least at this point, right? So I was able to, at the end, control myself and just let it play out as a joke. But to be honest with you, I wasn't joking. Call me a funny guy again and see what happens, motherfucker. That's how I would play it. I don't know what Joe Pesci's, interpretation of the thing was. So that's the beauty of being an actor. In the preparation, that's where the fun is. You can really play it according to your life experiences, according to your interpretation, right? According to how you feel like doing it, right? And according to the buildup of your character that you've done. But nonetheless, the important point is no matter how you decide to play it as an individual, you don't want to play it with a preconceived notion. We already know it's a joke, so don't fall into the pitfall of showing that it's a joke. Stay in each sequence, in each moment. In the beginning, you're cracking up. It's hilarious. Be in the cracking up. Don't get ahead of yourself and start being confused. Is this guy joking or not? Before you finish wholeheartedly cracking up. And then when you're confused, be fully confused and fully in terror. Don't go ahead until this guy's joking thing and cracking up at the end. And at the end, when you're cracking up, fully crack up. And vice versa for the Joe Pesci character. And whatever character you are, even if it's a movie or film, TV show that's not a gangster flick, so to speak, always stay fully immersed in that particular moment, in that particular emotion, without tipping off the audience that you know what happens at the end of the scene, because that's highly unprofessional and it's going to take away from the dynamism of the scene. So that's all I have for that. So leave a comment what you think about the scene, how you would play it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.